welcome back. So today, unfortunately, we're going to be going over one of the jobs we've done previously. So I noticed when I was doing the brakes that the bottom of the fork was actually a bit wet. It's fine now because I've wiped a lot of it with a tissue. And to be fair, it's sat for a day and it's not been wet again. But I think the fork's actually leaking through. There's a bolt that holds the cartridge inside the fork, and the bolt goes up the way, and I think it's leaking through whatever gap is around the wheel spindle, and then out the bottom. It's never been enough that there's a drip, but it's something that will need looked at, so that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to try and avoid taking both forks out. I'm hoping to get it, well, I need to move the bike, get it, lift the front end with ratchet straps, just using the rafters because I've not got a front stand. So I'll get it raised, get the pinch bolts loosened, wheel spindle out, calipers off on both sides. The mud guard will probably need to come off completely. I was hoping to just loosen it on this side and slide the fork through, but it doesn't look like there'll be space for that. Then the bolts on the clip-ons, there's a little retaining ring here that will need pinged off, and then the bolts on the triple clamps, and then everything should be at the way at that point, and I should just be able to slide the fork out. Before I get to that though, I will check it is actually leaking. So with the spindle out the way, I should be able to see how much fluid's there to get an idea. And I also have a new washer from Honda. So it is, they call it a special washer. I'm not sure what's special about it, but considering this is now leaking, and I've not used the special washer when I rebuilt them, I just used a generic copper washer which was roughly about the same size. Maybe there is actually something special about it after all. So that's on the rear stand, and then up front we've got the ratchet straps. You do need to angle them backwards a touch just so that they don't catch on the windscreen. Last time I took it off, but this time I want to try and avoid doing that. It's just one less thing to remove. So I'll start getting these jacked up, and then we'll be able to get started. bottom. Okay. And as soon as it loosens ever so slightly, I'm gonna do it standing up again. Right, that's it turning. So a bit of luck, I'm not gonna get covered in oil. Just a magnet. Cool, so there we go. So that's the bolt. You can see how oil passes through there and there. Now let's see what the difference is in the washer. So comparing both of them, the Honda one's slightly smaller. In fact, it's only the outer diameter that's smaller. It's definitely thicker, so that's not sure how much a factor that's been. And also, but you can actually see how this generic one's compressed around the edge of the screw. So I'm still surprised it's leaked. But then there is some debris here as well. I'm not sure if that's maybe been a factor, but I'll get it swapped over. I'm going to torque it up slightly higher than what it says in the manual, but it can only do good things. Did also use cotton buds to try and clean up where the washer sits a bit, so it looks a bit better now. Hopefully it gets a good seal. One thing I didn't mention was I added a tiny bit of thread lock on one of the threads, Loctite 222, and I think, what does it say in the book for torque? 34 Newton meters, but I went to 37, so only a little bit higher. Didn't want to risk breaking the bolt or making it a nightmare to get back out again. If it needs to come out again, hopefully not. And one other thing I've decided to do as a precaution, just to make sure there's no airlocks in the damper rod, just from taking the screw out the bottom and the oil holes in it. So might have added some air to the system, so I've taken the fork cap off and I'm just pumping. You can actually stuff. You can actually see the oil coming out the holes on the damper. So I'm just going to do that a couple of times and make sure there's no trap there. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of additional oil before putting the spacer and fork cap back in. So Motul 10W. Just get that pulled up, and just add a touch. Yeah, I'll do it. And then it's a case of spacer in. Pull it up a touch. Spacer. This retainer slides over. And then get this back on. And refit the fork cap to the same preload as it was before, which was 3 lines showing. As if I can span it. Just push that down slightly. Get that in there. So that's 2 lines. Lines. Cool. Press that down. So that's holding everything in place. I just need to get the stanchion up. Just make sure that was okay. Got the thread now. And then we'll get that properly tightened once it's in the bike. Give the fork a wee clean. And then I'm gonna put something soft over the top. So I pump it a few times, see if it's doing what it should. So before I refit to the bike, I'm just going to leave it overnight, make sure nothing more leaks out the bottom. I'll put a tissue in there just to check, and then I'll refit it, and hopefully that's that, and there'll be no more issues with it leaking out the bottom. I'm not going to I'm not going to record putting it back together because it's pretty much just the reverse, but potentially a bit slower because I'll be using a torque wrench. So I left this to sit for 2 days and now I'm back to see if it's actually stopped the leak. So I'll just lay this down and see what this is like. Perfect. Bone dry. So if you get the same issue where your fork's not leaking from the seal, it's leaking, or signs of it leaking from the bottom, then you know what it might be and what it should take to fix it. So clean up the mounting surface, new washer, maybe torque it slightly higher, and you should be good to go. Like and subscribe.